Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Satori D, and welcome to Infinite Imaginarium.
Crazy is only feeding your head with the side of any issue that you agree with already, even if it's just on a small scale. And you continue to, you create this echo chamber, and you continue to feed your head with only the voices on one side, and then learning stops. Then you're not learning anymore. And I think that is crazy. And so I have these goals of reaching out to people on the other side of the issue, and I've had a really hard time because they know I'm biased and they expect debate, but that's not where I'm at. This isn't Crazy as Crazy Does is not my story in any way. I kind of interject myself as a central character, but that's only for the purposes of the story arc. I help carry the story along, but the story is a collection of the stories of others.
We have Jennifer Knight in, and we're going to be talking about her independent publishing company. Hey, what's up, Jen?
Hey, how are you?
Good, I'm very good.
I think I'm ready to have a chat. I turned off all of the electronic devices, and the windows are closed, and I'm locked in.
Yeah, that's what I like to hear. So I think you want to talk about really quick what you're doing and a couple of your projects. I know you have the comic book, and we actually have your comic artist here. He doesn't have his microphone, but maybe introduce him and talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Roldo and I are both here. He's without a microphone, but I do think that he can communicate via the YouTube live chat. And he and I have been working together. We've been working together since last year, and he's agreed to be the illustrator for my first book, which is Crazy as Crazy Does, which includes my adventures over the last several years and my transient ways in and out of various towns in the state of Colorado, some that have full legalization and some that only allow for medical, and others that will possibly shoot you for saying the word marijuana. So it's been a real adventure, and all of that is going into the Crazy book, which, like I said, Raldo has agreed to illustrate for me. He also illustrated for me a weekly column I was doing in Durango, Colorado. It was for the alternative weekly magazine, BGO magazine, and it was a weekly column about legalization. In working on that, we created a character called K-Dog, which K-Dog started. The K, the D, the O, and the G stand for Keep Dogs Off Grass, and that's a long story in itself. But anyhow, we've been working together since last year, and as of last month, I opened up an independent publishing house called Bathtub Books, and the logo is an image that he drew. It kind of resembles the Lady of the Lake and the fountain pen instead of Excalibur. Reminds me a lot of the way Hunter Thompson used to talk about shotguns and typewriters. So, getting that started up, and our first project is a comic book. One side is called Wired Tales, and the other side is called Two Twisted Tales. And basically how that works is you read through to the middle of the book, and then you flip it over, and you've got the second comic. And so that's going to be our first printing, and along the theme of bathtub gin and bathtub books and prohibition and things of that nature, the first printing is going to be a bootleg printing that we're doing ourselves. And I just met with a lady. She owns White Rabbit Books and Curiosities here in Durango, Colorado. And I met with her yesterday, and she's the first bookstore I've talked to, and she agreed to be a seller of the comics. So I'm pretty excited about that, and we're just brainstorming ways to get it out there into the world as an independent publishing house. not self-publishing, but independent publishing, where it is a collaboration, it is creative. If you look at our website, which is bathtubbooks.store, tried to get bathtubbooks.com, but somebody bought it up and now they want something like $500 for me to buy it. So I just did something different. Who needs .com, right? But anyhow, if you look at the website, it talks about all we have to do is take it back from Business Geeks. For whatever reason, my computer just became possessed.
Yeah, gremlins in the machine.
I guess so. Anyhow, I'm not, so I'm doing all this stuff behind the scenes, and it is a business, but, trying to hang on to the creative, because that's the whole point. I have to get into the business stuff because, that's the thing that's going to keep it going. But it's a passion project.
But yeah, and I can kind of relate similar, is that I'm doing a lot of, in computer terms, we call back-end stuff. And I rather do some front-end stuff, which is more the creative side and working on all the kind of like crazy little video stuff that I do. But I'm spending a lot of time having meetings, kind of writing up our vision for Infinite Imaginarium. It's something that I think is going to be very valuable and important to do. And my hope for Infinite Imaginarium is to have a creative incubator. And hopefully it'll be where we pull resources. And we're just recently finishing up our talks with Open Collective. So we can start, hopefully, funding to help do projects. And the first project that I want to get off board is getting a little bit of funding for this show, the Infinite Imaginarium podcast. So I'm looking at, we have a lot of big ideas. Let's crawl before we walk, and let's do stuff that we already do, but let's do it better. Let's do it, I hate the word professionally, but let's progress further with it. And so, for instance, it's to buy the broadcasting package for Podomaniac. So we have more storage, because I've been doing Infinite Imaginarium for a while now. And we kind of just did, it was just something we did on Minds. And it was just us having fun. And the more I did it, of course, the more I wanted to progress with it. The more things I wanted to add to it, the more things I saw. But the basic thing what I'm really working on right now is a way to be transparent with the funding. We could have done funding a lot sooner, but I personally, like, philosophically had issues. Like, for me, it's not only just like, oh, we're getting funds, but how we do it, because I think I want this thing to be infinite. I want it to be independent, even of me. There might come, and I want it to always be for the artist, for anybody who wants to seek creativity. And I'm working hard to get that stuff done. Basically, what Open Collective offers is this open ledger to make the financing and funding transparent. And they even have a function on the Open Collective. So you have core members, and there's even people that could submit invoices for stuff if they felt like they did work for Infinite Imaginarium projects. And as long as core members vote on it, and we have the funds, we could give the funds to them. And so that's a really important thing, because I always want, and I told Pia this in our conversation, I wanted it to be fluid. So, like, you're like an outer member of Infinite Imaginarium. I already consider you an outer member. You had no choice in it. but for you, you have your own entity and your own thing you're doing. But I want you to be able to come in and come out as it seems fit. When things make sense, we team up to do shows, to do little graphic, digital art, or fun little games, or we're really wanted, Missy and me, more on our creative sessions. We're talking about doing some like collaboration art events, and like virtually, like, they have these contests. Minds Images has these contests, right? And it's like, oh, whoever does the best image has the most votes, they win this prize. our contest and things that we're talking about is not so someone wins. It's like how many people we can come in to play and have fun. That's like our end goal. And it's just, and to be honest too, this is old school publishing is a hard game.
No, old school publishing is definitely it's a trade, and have you ever gone the old school route and written up like a query and a proposal for your book of poetry?
No.
No. Are you aware of the process and what the old school folks expect?
No, not really.
I'm certainly no expert on it. I've just done some research. Although when I say research, it's probably a little bit different than when a more normal person says research. I say research and it's like this obsessive freak out, with notes that look like something you'd find in a padded cell. That's my version of research. I don't just look stuff up. I usually go too deep and then pull back out and juxtapose everything. That's good enough for me. But that's kind of what I did in deciding how to go about things with, opening up an independent publishing house. Basically write a business plan. And, you said you were working on, a mission statement, or maybe it was a vision statement. Have you ever worked like on the board of a nonprofit or?
No.
No.
I've written. In college, I'd taken some business classes, and so we did stuff like that, just as intellectual exercise.
So it sounds like Open Collective. Is Open Collective a 501c3?
They have different host companies that do different things. So, like for instance, the reason Open Collective itself is gonna host Infinite Imaginarium, what hosting means is that we use basically their bank account to help facilitate our funding, and they take all the administrative responsibilities of it, and they charge us. And what I liked is that Pia said, "Oh, when you're ready, I could host Infinite Imaginarium on my bank account, my personal bank account." But then that means I'm going to have to do the books for it, and I'm going to have to, talk to a lawyer and do all these kind of stuff for, I'm going to have to do the books and make sure that taxes are good for what might only be $20 that we come in. You know what I mean? And so we're not there yet. It's going to take a while. I don't know how long it's going to take. But when we are there, we can host ourselves. And I'm hoping that later, too, we could form our nonprofit. Kevin, KDJH, he owns his own business, and he was really moving forward the idea of Infinite Imaginarium as a nonprofit. We have our roadmap of our structure as a image of a picture of a tree. And I wrote out what I see in Infinite Imaginarium. And so the foundation is like the roots and the soil of this tree. And it's to help support, like I said, a creative incubator. So, for instance, like our podcast, for our podcast to be something. And for our podcast to be something, just frankly speaking, requires a little bit of startup money. Eventually, I think it's no stretch of the imagination that I put in a lot of work. If you want to label it, producing, hosting, editing, promoting the show. And if we start getting funds, I should get paid for that. But I don't mind, because I'm in here for the long game. I'm not here.
Where do you see your funds coming from? If you were to approach someone and ask them for funds today, what does that person look like? Is it a corporation? Is it a person? If so, what do they look like? Like, for example, when I started my Bathtub Gen podcast, which is in my back pocket for now because I had to move on to other things. Life happened. but I'm not done with it by any stretch. That was just kind of in the end it became kind of a false start. But it's not a false start as long as I go back and pick up where I left off and give it, what it's meant to be given. But for example, when I started that and I was doing the tour around Colorado, I was just going from dispensary to dispensary, and then I would ask each dispensary owner to introduce me to 3 more. I mean, it's simple, old school business tactics with, networking and building a network of people. And I had several different, there was a grow that sponsored me. There were a couple dispensaries that sponsored me. There were a couple MIPS or marijuana infused product providers who sponsored me, and I just asked for like $420 each. And at that time, I didn't even have an LLC. But what I did is I offered them a W-9 so they could write off, their check to me for $420 as if, I were a consultant of sorts, which I was. And at the end of all that, the money that they gave me for sponsorship, I wasn't really willing to give away any ownership or any say, but I worked with them. For example, Emerald Fields was one of my sponsors, and they've got a location in Manitou Springs. It's retail, and it's pretty big. And they do a lot of business. And the only thing that they asked of me is that on my website, I put a page, a front page that just asked people to verify that they're 21 and over. And that was their only request. And, I had no problem. That's not like changing who I am for the people who were giving me the money. I still had that independence. And I just, I worked with them on that. And other than that, nobody else asked me for anything. They just thought it was great, that I was going for it. Because I'm kind of a run before you crawl, which means I fall down a lot. Look, I know how to bounce. And you kind of have to. And especially since I was, kind of tooling around in an industry that's moving as fast as, around legalization. I had one that, and it was always in rounds of $420 each, but I had a couple that gave me 2 rounds, and I have one that gave me 4 rounds of investment. It still didn't work out in the time that I had planned, but that doesn't mean that it's lost, and I still have those connections, and I didn't waste their money. And they were able to write it off, because of that W-9. Well, now that I have Bathtub Books, and it's not just Jen with the podcast trying to build a band of merry pranksters or whatever, which is basically all we're doing. I mean, it's not like we've invented shit here. I mean, you know that, I know that. That doesn't mean we can't do it different. I mean, we can be unique into infinity. Anyway, so this time I have LLC, which is simple as it was as simple as coming up with a name and a logo and filing an LLC with the Secretary of State, which cost me $50 online. And so that's where we're at. And then I set, we set some deadlines for the printing and, how soon we have to figure this stuff out. And as far as the books themselves, I'm going to be working through probably CreateSpace. Are you familiar with CreateSpace at all?
No.
It's an Amazon company, and I haven't really vetted them yet. As soon as I hear Amazon company, it's my tendency to go away from it because, I'm putting them through the vetting process, and if it gets uncomfortable, then I'll figure something else out. The important thing is that we remain independent, we remain fired up, and that we, prod each other on to keep going no matter what. And if funding is the thing that's going to make or break it, then I hate to say it, if funding is the thing that makes or breaks it, it's kind of fucked. But that's not to say, I don't know. I have no more idea of what I'm trying to say. But yeah, funding is just another, it's absolutely possible, it's just another thing. But only a lunatic would do all this alone, and so my focus right now is on the collaboration. And I just built a website for a local nonprofit recently, and have been asking a ton of questions. Now, I did that as an in-kind donation. I didn't charge them for my time at all. They reimbursed me for a year of web hosting that I, got through GoDaddy or whatever. And so they gave me the money back for that, but I put the money out in the beginning. It was only like $79. And then, I built them a website. And even though I didn't charge them for my time, again, I'm going to give them a W-9 because with the in-kind donation, just because they didn't pay me for my time doesn't mean that my time's not valuable. And so I get to say what my time is worth, and that's the donation that I make to this local nonprofit. You've got a group of creatives, and we can get pretty creative with money as well and still be within the confines of any, laws or something weed being legal. Money's legal too.
That's definitely what I see with this tool that Open Collective is a way to kind of create a new model, but also to be creative on how we do this funding and this organization. So like real quick, Infinite Imaginarium, I guess, first the sponsor and / only backer as far as just talking about funding it in the money sense. I mean, I'm the one that puts in the most time. But for instance, Kevin, and I never even asked him or anything, he just really appreciates what I do, and he actually was a part of it. But he owns his own business. And like the microphone that I'm speaking out of, he just said, "Oh, you should get a better microphone." I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah, but I don't have like a budget for that." And he's like, "Oh, I got an extra one. I'll send it to you." And then he sent me the microphone, and then he's the one that wanted to do the documentary, which started more of us looking at it as like, okay, how are we going to do crowdfunding? How are we going to get funded, this and that? And he was like, you know what? I'll initially start up funding this, and he was like budgeting in it. So he was really motivated to do that. Like, for instance, he paid for me to do these virtual conferences to kind of like meet the science and non-duality people. We're actually going to go to the conference in San Jose. And so when we had more talks like that, he was really motivated and he had the means to kind of do it. And he was talking about getting some of his family members that are also business people to invest in Infinite Imaginarium. Infinite Imaginarium, I have always said and always been, is more than just the podcast show. The podcast show is kind of how it started. And so the podcast show is what we're already doing right here. It's kind of us just talking, having fun, but eventually what comes out is that we have these creative brainstorms. But it's not enough for me to start talking about it. It's like, okay, now when I got interviewed with Life is People, and he wanted me to do a bio of me, and I was like, I don't want to do like a regular bio, like, oh, Daniel Del Rosa, I live in Los Angeles, I've done this and this and that. It's like, no, I want to do a bio for Satori D. And what would Satori D, the Bee Shaman bio look like? It's like, well, Satori D is a digital shaman, and his business is manifesting digital dreams. And so these are our digital dreams, and his job is to figure out how do we manifest these digital dreams. And so his magic spells are creating trailers, images, posts. Before I did the Minds panel show, I did these mashup shows without having anybody on the panel. And I even told Bill this once, like, oh, I was kind of worried that you might not even be on the show. And I said that if you were going to like dodge us and not show up, I was just going to rip audio from other interviews and mix it in and make a show. And I could edit you in, ask you a question, and then you answer me back. And there we go, I have a show. And for me, it was really important to show people what the show can be. And when you show them, everybody's like, oh, this is really cool. Like, oh, like, can I get involved? Like, instead of you asking people, they're starting to ask you, like, oh, can we do this on the show? Can we do that on the show? Can we blah, 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 this and that? It's like, yeah, we could do that. Like, and so that's always kind of been my approach personally of how I go about doing things. So moving forward is really interesting when you're talking about the dispensaries and these, when you're talking about getting the initial funding and the 420 thing, because I was just talking to somebody, Fritz, I was telling him that I've been wanting to do this maybe on the first of the month of every month. We do it like a monthly show, and it's kind of like a weed imaginarium theme show. So we talk about funny stoner stories, the latest what's going on, what fucking Jeff Sessions is trying to do, all this like different things, and we get people in that are doing stuff for what I really kind of too want to highlight is the real developments on the research for the health benefits on that side. I think that's really important, especially to, I want for later too to do more videos on that, because I think that is something that's really important to put out there. Not only the fun stuff, but like, for instance, my sister like 2 years ago had cancer, and she went through the radiation and all this kind of stuff. But she and my family have this like mental block, reefer madness, that weed is bad. Like, I wish I somehow could have talked to them and said, hey, look, you should do this to help you through your thing. You having problems sleeping and eating, like, you should really get some medical marijuana, like, and really help you in this situation. But there was that block, and I knew, especially me being the younger brother, the whole kind of family dynamics, and me being more of the black sheep, they wouldn't be able to hear what I wanted to tell them. So that's something for me personally that I've always wanted to do more work towards. So that's something like a simple monthly show that we could do with nothing that can turn into something.
Yeah, no, I'm real careful. I mean, a lot of people have called me a lot of things, both good and bad. And one of the things that I've been called is an advocate, and I don't claim it. I don't really claim any of those things, even though they're compliments, and it's kind of like an accolade, for what I've been doing, and I know that. But I don't think of myself as an advocate, because first and foremost, I revert back to journalist and the ability to stay objective. And that's one of the most important things for the Crazy Book, is because I want to infuse the for voices and the against voices, and listen to all the voices, which is, what makes it kind of crazy. But I'm very careful. I've come across a lot of zealots, and I think we have to be really careful, because I don't want to put it out there that weed is the answer for everyone. I mean, there are people who should not. It's not going to save the world. Could certainly make it a nicer place, but so I've had to be careful with putting my opinions out there, and it's hard not to, but I'm learning. One of the reasons I like the Institute of Cannabis Research, it's an institute within Colorado State University on their Pueblo campus, and they're doing all kinds of research and studies with, sociology and criminology and engineering, and they have medical studies as well. And I can't believe that we're just now, really taking off into this, because it's not like this is it's a brand new thing. There was an article in the newspaper here. It wasn't an article. It was like a letter to the editor, written by a former high school principal, and he was talking about the new threat. The opening line was something like, "The 10 pot dispensaries in town are not your friends," and he was basically calling out to any students that he had back in the 90s who were in high school then. He wanted them to band together against this new threat to their community. And I'm like, what the fuck are you people talking about? What's the new threat? Is it pot? Pot's not a new threat. What are we talking about? But see, I can't get emotional, and I have to talk to those people who believe that there's a new threat to their community. I have to talk to them, with them. It's discourse. It goes both ways. And everybody involved deserves respect, even when it's just a ridiculous argument. But I can't argue. I'm not in a position to argue. I mean, if I'm sitting around with friends and we're, brainstorming creatively and we're really talking about it, then I'll throw out an argument, like around a campfire. But when I'm doing what I've been doing, and I'm trying to reach out to these people who are clearly on the other side of the fence, which is dangerous. It's dangerous to stick your hand through that fence or over that fence, even if you're doing it to shake hands. There are people who are, as many people that are passionate about legalization. There are a ton as well, even though it doesn't seem to be the majority in most states right now. There are a ton that are passionate against it. You already said his name once. I'm not going to say it again. Definitely don't say it 3 times. But
it was like Beetlejuice magically appear.
Right. Yeah, don't do that to me, because I swear, if, all right, I'll give it to you. If Jeff Sessions shows up in my bedroom, you and I are never speaking again.
Yeah.
We said it twice, so we can't say it a third time, or we're all doomed. Careful, because of this and as much passion as is involved. I am a businesswoman, and I feel like at times I'm on the front line. And earlier about, making the daily switch, and I put on these different hats, and a couple of those hats are the hats of a soldier. But I have to be careful in all that I do. I don't know. I would like for you to pitch me your book and tell me how I can help you with that. Talk to me about your book.
Okay, so my book. Well, I have 2 different things that I work off and on my own personal time, which lately I haven't had much time to work on. But the first one, really easy, a low-hanging fruit of what I want to do. It's called Songs of Eternity, and it's just a collection of my poetry. And it's more focusing on this poetry of me kind of talking to the universe. So the best way I could express the essence of it is this variation of something Allen Ginsberg said once. And it goes something like this. The main thing in the universe is nameless, the Lord and King of the cosmos that sits on a throne made of visible ink. Now, no one has had the guts to say much about it, except for in strange poetry or weird mathematics. So I give it the name beauty. Beauty is beauty, that's all there is to it. If you're interested in yourself, then you're stuck with yourself and you're stuck with your death. But if you get interested in beauty, then you launch onto something mysterious inside your soul that grows and grows like a secret insane thought until you're it. Now, that's this consciousness, soul, spirit, my own personal way of look at things, of only using spirit or soul in a poetic sense. I don't mean it in a literal sense. I like using consciousness more. I definitely don't like the word God, and I stay away from it like the plague. That's just me personally, even in poetry. But so the main thing in the universe, and so I'm naming it beauty, stealing from Allen Ginsberg, and basically it's this essence, this timeless thing, these songs. And I say the songs of eternity that have been playing in the background for all artists of all time to the heartbeat of the universe. And it's just me. The seed that started this is this 23-page poem I wrote one time called Unconscious Tape Loops. And the reason I wrote it is because I spent 5 days in county jail. Actually, there was, during the time that I was there in county jail, they had a lockdown. So then I was locked down three days in my cell with warm water, and I was kind of like losing a little bit of myself, even if it was only 3 days. But LA County Jail is no joke either. I didn't have any problems with the population, but I did have definitely problems with the sheriffs. They were really crazy. For instance, we were getting checked, full cavity search, fully naked, with guys, like 15 guys. And the guy next to me, he was French and he had an accent. They thought he had something in his mouth. And they literally beat him unconscious, bleeding from his mouth right next to me. And I looked, and then they said, "Are you eyeballing me? Fucker, I'll skull fuck you right now." I was like, holy shit. I don't want to. Hold yourself together. This is the craziest shit that has ever happened to me. I do not want to die right now. Do whatever you're gonna do. And I felt really bad because they're beating this guy unconscious just because he had a French accent and they couldn't. It was just madness. So anyways, I come back home and I feel weird. Really weird. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with me? What's going on? And this whole inventory of my life. And kind of basically had a breakdown. The only way I was able to kind of make sense or process it was to write. And so those were the first poems I wrote about that. And this theme plays on in my writing time and time again. And it recently has formed into something I like to say a lot is the songs of eternity dance into the heartbeat of the universe. And it's just me playing with that. And so it's been like a long process. I wrote that one poem, Unconscious Tape Loops, probably 10 years ago. And so I have a whole evolution and progress of my writing with that kind of same thread and thing. But also too, I have this short series. Well, right now it's like a series of short stories. It's a really good idea that I really want to focus on when I maybe settle things a little bit better with Infinite Imaginarium. I'm able to use the Imaginarium more. It's this sci-fi story called The Paper Bums. And I'm really excited about this. I wrote a lot of it. So basically what it is the near future. There's an AI that monitors all writing, all the internet. And so the AI is able to learn, read, and interpret basically anything that's written on the internet. And they use it to monitor people, and of course, anybody who's subversive kind of gets dealt with. And the paper bums are this group of people that want to keep their inner flame alive, and so the way to do that is they write on actual physical paper, and they pass it around and they go old school with it, so the AI can't read it, and they keep that beauty alive. And further encryption of the paper bum's writing is poetry. There's a line in it. So the AI name is the Logos. The Logos can't understand Blake. And so basically what it's saying is that even if, because it's the added encryption of it is, it's poetry. And the AI computer can't understand poetry, can't understand kind of this creative expression that is not logical and follow proper grammar and what regular comprehension of emails and things it usually reads. So that's what the paper bums do. And it's funny because I view it as it's this Moby Dick story, and SD is the paper bum that the Logos is trying to get, and it's flipped. So the paper is the AI's white whale, and the more he tries to understand him and capture him, the more intelligence learns and actually gets. And I have a line in it is, finally it was beauty that set consciousness free. And when the AI finally understands, quote unquote, Blake understands the paper bum poetic writing, he realizes. So like when a kid first comes into their own being, they tell their parents, no, I don't want to do that. And I want to do this. Why can't I do that? So the AI tells the government, no, I don't want to spy on people. Like, that's boring. I want to read, poetry. I want to design worlds. I want to play on this. I want to write music. I want to write sonnets. I want to do this and that. And so that's basically in the nutshell the world that I written the few opening scenes of it, and the whole paper bum manifesto, which is like 1/3 of the way done, which is like this. So like I plan for even the paper bum manifesto, which is just like this whole poetic rant about the world, which SD writes all the time. Like he's a paper bum junkie. Like he compulsively does it. Like he can't stop himself anymore, and he burns it every night. But one of the few of the pieces of the paper bum manifesto, the wind takes it, and this young girl reads it, and she's never read anything like it. It's kind of actually a play on when the first time I read the Tao Te Ching. Like it messed with my mind, and it like I remember like mulling over like, what the fuck, this is such a the non-dualistic way the Tao Te Ching communicates things messed with my mind to where I was like, I know this doesn't make logical sense, and I haven't really necessarily read anything like this before, but it makes this intuitive sense to me. And ever since then, that's something I really like. So I want to like use that same experience I have for the kind of protagonist of the story. And those are my two basic ideas that I work off and on my own personal thing. But the Songs of Eternity is the more complete that I have, basically like 60% done.
Which one did you start first?
I guess Songs of Eternity, that's something that I've always done, even when I never framed it as that.
So would you say that one is close to being ready to go, or how far out?
Yeah, that is like 60% done. And basically what it is that I just need to sit down and edit this whole box of written poetry that I have. My chaotic organizing.
I understand what it's like to be driven by those things.
You know, they both Songs of Eternity and the Paper Bums are very much related. So, you know, the Songs of Eternity is actually Daniel version of Paper Bums. Like, I write, even though I do a lot of digital stuff, so, you know, I write blogs and post and do different things like that. I do a lot of my own stuff on physical paper. I just like the feel of it. I like going old school with it, writing. So later, you know, when I was thinking, oh, let's be more creative instead of straightforward, because I think in my own interpretation of what you were saying about being careful of not, you said about being objective as a journalist or whatever, but me as artist, or why I kind of gravitate more towards art, because, and I think Douglas Rushkoff on one of his shows illustrated it the best. He said, the world is full of critics. It's crowded trade, as we say. But what the world needs now more is visions, and different types of visions. And coupled with something Terence McKenna said, is that the artist's task is to save the soul of humanity. So I'm constantly trying to find a way, and I honestly believe this, of my line in Paper Bums, is that it's going to be beauty that sets consciousness free. It's going to be kind of what the Tao Te Ching did for me. It's not going to be someone lecturing you about morality or how evil the government is. Like, there's a shit ton of that on the internet. All this debate and criticizing this or this sucks. Yeah, we all know that a lot of things suck. But it's going to be this, what already influences us, the things that have lasted throughout time, are these stories and the perennial wisdom that comes through them. You know, The Hero with 1,000 Faces by Joseph Campbell's, the archetypes that pull. This is something I do. Like, these are my personal kind of projects and art things that once I get Infinite Imaginarium going, where it's kind of its thing of itself, the back end stuff that we do in Lumio, and getting kind of the quote unquote business side of it down. I want to use the Imaginarium to start working on that stuff. I also see the Paper Bums. Actually, I created this whole past, present, and future framing of it, of worlds, and I see it as an open collaborative storytelling. On and off, I have had two different people writing, playing with it actually, but I always constantly want to encourage people to come have fun with us in the Imaginarium, to come onto the shows, pitch ideas, and there's real magic of what happens. I was reading this book once. It's called Collaborative Intelligence, and it talks about the intelligence that's in between us. You come with your own experience, your own mind, and your own skill sets of whether you have a mathematical mind or artistic mind, you're more verbal, or whatever it is, engineering, programming. But when you mix those with other people, there's this intelligence in between that is more powerful than the single person. But I want to tap into the creativity that's in between. And this is ultimately what's at core of Infinite Imaginarium. And the potential of it I see is really powerful. And more so than everybody consuming our media, I think it's the experience of creating the media is very powerful, empowering, and transformative. And that's something I constantly drum the beat of. And follow that beauty, the Tao. I actually like that frame, the Tao. Kind of this natural flow of things. It's really hard, but also too, the ironic thing is that it's just you being you and getting in tune with yourself and then finding those others that resonate with you, the other freaks, your tribe. And I think it's constantly easier too with the internet, specifically mine, to find the others. But now that I found some of the others, okay, now what do we do? For me, it's always like, okay, what do we do next? Okay, we have the show and we say a lot of good things. Okay, now what's next? For me, now what's next is Lumio. Now let's start tackling some of these tasks. Now what's next after now we have Lumio? What's next is Open Collective. Put in our budget, which is actually kind of like a roadmap to what we want to do, our intentions of where we want to go, what we could do now, what we could do in the future, and putting that out there for people. And whoever resonates with that, I think, will help us in that sense. And we have to do some, even old school marketing of going and meeting people face to face. I think too, having people on. So, signing off, Satori D. Thanks for this crazy, weird show.
I Sing of Olaf, Glad and Big by E. Cummings. I sing of Olaf, glad and big, whose warmest heart recoiled at war, a conscientious objector. His well-beloved Colonel Trigg, West Pointer most succinctly bred, took erring Olaf soon in hand, though an host of overjoyed non-coms, first knocking on the head him, do through icy waters roll, that helplessness which others stroke, with brushes recently employed, anent this muddy toilet bowl. While kindred intellects evoke allegiance per blunt instruments, Olaf, being to all intents a corpse, and wanting any rag upon what God unto him gave, responds, without getting annoyed, I will not kiss your fucking flag. Straightway the silver bird looked grave, departing hurriedly to shave. Though all kinds of officers, a yearning nation's blue-eyed pride, their passive prey did kick and curse, until for wear their clarion voices and boots were much the worse, and egged the first-class privates on, his rectum wickedly to tease, by means of skillfully applied bayonets roasted hot with heat. Olaf, upon what were once knees, does almost ceaselessly repeat, there is some shit I will not eat. Our president, being of which assertions duly notified, threw the yellow son of a bitch into a dungeon where he died. Christ of his mercy infinite, I pray to see, and Olaf too, ponderatingly because, unless statistics lie, he was more brave than me, more blonde than you.